Hey everyone, TDR Tradetoblack podcast back in Toronto, Canada at the CEBO Exchange. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Thanks for checking in. Big day today. Another big MSO list on a Tier 1 exchange. Verano Holdings. Aaron Miles, Chief Investment Officer, joins us. Good to see you and congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you again. Really proud, excited to make this move. We feel this is going to be such a strong move for the company just from a trading perspective.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
This, as we say, this feels different this time for the industry.
It does.
News from obviously late in the summer, HHS, rescheduling. We've had a lot of momentum. And now you're seeing a lot of action taking place with certain companies uplisting because 2024 appears to be, I think, a pretty big monumental year for the industry, don't you think?
No, absolutely. And uplisting is the key to that, right? And it's no secret and there's no coincidence here why we made the move following the HHS recommendation. We've had a game plan in place to strengthen our capital markets exposure and to partner with CBOE Canada and CBOE in general. Really sets us up to take advantage of some of these opportunities that could present themselves in 24, if rescheduling and SAFE and stuff start to play out the way that we think it will.
So let's walk us through what this announcement then means. Being listed on this exchange, you talked about CEBO Canada and then as well CEBO within the States. Mm-hmm. I know there's some stuff that's in that ecosystem that's going to be very viable for you as a company that I think a lot of your shareholders and potential investors would like to know more of. But maybe walk us through being listed on this exchange and how it elevates the overall business.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been in communication with the NEO Exchange and now CBOE, right?
And so the acquisition was
a big component to us really wanting to partner with the exchange. Having senior exchange status. So when we think about what momentum could happen in 24 and us being able to transition into the U.S. Potentially announce approval, but being in the CBOE network allows a much faster entry into that if and when that happens. But having eligibility for index inclusion, so MSCI and the FTSE index, and really having tighter parameters around predatory trading, you start to think about some of the headlines that are made around dark pools and naked shorting, and there's always going to be a world where that exists. Yeah. But to be able to really beef up our exposure and our listing into an exchange that has such tight parameters around the trading is night and day difference. And one of the biggest components of this, because there's a few optional paths right now, right? And one of them would cause us to really restructure the business, take months to restructure the business, a massive amount of legal fees, and then to get back into the U.S. you have to unwind all of that. So what we think is, this gives us senior exchange status, partners us with, again, a CBOE that I think people really underplay the significance of what CBOE
Why do you think that?
Well, because they're options, they were futures, but they've always been equities. And now that they're really upgrading and really putting a lot of effort behind their corporate listings business. That's why they acquired NEO. That's why they launched the U.S. listings business. But you think about it, NYSE is the mecca of capital markets. I work there. I understand how large of an opportunity it is. But from a U.S. perspective, they only have 18% market share from an equity perspective. And then, NASDAQ's at 16. And CBOE,
so NYSE 17, NASDAQ 16, what's CEBO?
It's anywhere between 14 and 15%.
Oh, that's impressive.
And that's impressive. But they don't have the headlines from a corporate listings perspective.
Right.
So, but they have the platform built. They're in 26 markets and they have a very strong reputation globally.
Yeah.
So when you could start to really beef up what a corporate listings look like in the CBOE network, let's not downplay that. This isn't a minor step for us. This is a significant step for us. This is a significant step for the CBOE Canada. And we're really happy that we could be kind of the lead steer in partnering with them here.
Largest listing for them, third largest company in cannabis in the U.S., over $2 billion market cap. Yeah. So big day for them, obviously, too. But I think to your point, it's the visibility and transparency that you're going to see who's buying and who's shorting. You actually mentioned off camera that 97% of this industry right now is driven by retail. Like that is an eye opener, right?
Yeah. People might not like my tie on this and they're going to sell our shares, right? Fundamental analysis doesn't seem to follow this space very closely, but we don't run the business based off dislocations in the market. So let me be clear there. But what we can do is we can really beef up where our listing's at. And when and if that time comes, when institutional dollars start to come in, the reason I made that point earlier is you think about what 24 could be. There's a lot of institutional institutions that are chomping at the bit to get into this space, but they can't based off of the legality, right? So if you can get
you had some of those conversations, and you continue to have those conversations
absolutely.
now.
Yeah, we've been talking to firms for 5 years.
What's their feedback? Well, what's their feedback been like since the HHS announcement?
So HHS announcement put the wind behind the sails again.
Okay.
Prior to that, the starts and the stops. I mean, we won't relive some of these moments that we've had as a cannabis industry, but the starts and stops have really put these industry, these institutions on the sideline. But what HHS announcement, as you said, it feels different, right? If this isn't safe, this isn't pageantry, this isn't DC playing the DC game. This is the administration now backing a rescheduling of cannabis, right? And you would think with everything that's on the line in 24 with a presidential election, that there's a lot of incentive for this administration to get this across the finish line. So that's why this feels different. Our stock.
Well, we in Chicago, I think everybody's term was, and I said this a few times, cautiously optimistic. But name me one person that didn't think rescheduling was going to happen. They're not saying it is, but they're also saying it isn't, which I think a lot of people don't want to put their foot in their mouth, but it's clearly steering towards that direction, that we're going to see some sort of change when it comes to rescheduling in 2024. But you're going to say?
Yeah, but we've been neutral really on safe passage from day one. I mean, we were disappointed at the end of last year, but we're very positive on this move, right? And again, we're now putting corporate action behind how we see this industry starting to gain some momentum.
Yeah.
Right. And again, this isn't just to make a move for move's sake. I mean, this is a very, very strong move by this company. And, we have a very strong capital markets, group, internally, and we've been discussing this for 3 years. But what I was going to say is, when you think about institutional dollars coming in, so the people that don't like my tie and they're trading our stock and they're selling and putting pressure on the stock,
right?
Fidelity and Wellington say, we're not going to let you in, So to get that kind of support start to come in, and if we can flip this on its head, where we're bulk majority institutional traded, well, the hesitance is, we're on a legal product, anti-money laundering concerns. And so if you can start to gain some momentum, you get rescheduling done, or if the Garland memo comes out and it has banking protections built in.
That'd be huge.
Be huge, right? And so, again, we don't run this business based off of dislocations in the market or any assumptions at the federal level, but we do position it ahead of growth. So this is a positioning ahead of growth. And but I do think the way that we've been able to perform and operate as a company really shows up in our numbers and shows that we're not making bets on long-term plays here. So
to put it bluntly, we're one day closer to crushing these shorters, right?
That's the hope. And I told you we're going to buy a really expensive bottle of champagne and we'll pop the cork that day. But listen, I mean, the opportunity for them to take advantage of the market is there.
Yeah, I hear you.
And it's
a lot of it's international too, from one of the people I was speaking to here this morning at CEBO. But it's just rinse and repeat. They've been doing this for a number of years. But yeah, it's been a dream for shorters for a number of times, because, as you said, 97% of it is actually driven by retail. But I'd like to get a better idea as to how this U.S. landscape looks like, if there is and when rescheduling takes place. You're making the proper procedures and requirements to obviously list. So shareholders right now, all their shares are going to be transferred. Same thing, under the ticker symbol VRNO.
They're already
under
trading.
CEBO.
Yep.
But you're now in a tier 1 exchange, and we all know if and when we get that announcement next year, timing is going to be of the essence. So even 2 to 3 months, so let's say some of these exchanges or some of these companies that want to list on a tier 1 exchange, it takes that much time. What does that present, I think, for you as a company speaking to institutions to have that much runway time if you get an announcement of 2-3 months? Because I know the way this industry trades, 2-3 months is almost like 2-3 years in other sectors.
Every second counts in the space.
Yeah.
Every day matters. And, again, we joke that we live dog years, right? When you're working in cannabis. But, again, it's no accident why we're partnering with the CBOE.
Yeah.
And I say CBOE because that's the CBOE network, right? And we'll take advantage of every opportunity that they allow us to take. And, I don't want to speak for the exchange, but I can tell you, having the senior exchange status and being uplisted to a senior exchange puts us in a very strong position if and when that time comes to move into the U.S. on the CBOE U.S. to be able to transition very quickly. And again, when you think about how we went public back in the day, there was the reverse takeover transaction, and you kind of had to maneuver to get the listing, and similar things have to happen if we wanted to go into the other big exchange here in Canada. And so for us, it's just time is of the essence.
Yeah.
And so to even get there is months, and then to unwind is months. And so when you want a first mover advantage, and people are like, well, I don't want to buy necessarily, like a Wellington doesn't want to buy on a Canadian exchange. I want to buy on a U.S. exchange. And we're there in a matter of moments in comparison to what you'd have to do to unwind your business. That played a big role in what we're looking at doing here.
What do you have planned the rest of the week?
go out, talk to more media,
Are
talk
you
to
meeting with
investors.
institutions here in Toronto?
Yes, we're talking to everybody across the board, and back in the U.S., this is a kind of a light moment where people are like, okay, this is a big move, and there hasn't been a company of our size make the move over to the CBOE Canada. Although
Yeah.
I encourage every company to really evaluate where you're trading and kind of looking at the parameters around that. But we're out talking CBOE, we're out talking Verano, and we're making sure that people understand that this isn't a small step for us. This is a very, very large step. And I know the U.S. exchanges get all the headlines, but we feel this is going to be very, very beneficial to the company.
I think one question a lot of people would like to learn. Terracin back in July listed on the TSX. You have Curaleaf, their aspirations to list on the TSX. So why did it make sense to list on CEBO Canada and the CEBO network versus, say, a TSX? Well, how would you best explain that for our viewers to have a better understanding?
Yeah. So number one, it's the sinkage to the U.S. market, and being in that network. I think
So when there is an announcement, the turnkey will be a lot quicker than, say, opposed to a TSX.
Absolutely, it will
Makes
be.
sense.
And then they already had international exposure, so they were able to leverage their international exposure to restructure the business to get listed in the TSX. But another big component to this is, we don't have to change the way that we operate as a business. If I want to go out and execute on a merger or an acquisition, I can issue shares, debt, nothing changes. And there's a little bit of hoops that you have to jump through on the TSX. And again, I don't want to speak too broadly about that, just given that we're not listed there. But this gives us the opportunity to really continue to operate like a normal business, so nothing changes for us besides getting senior exchange status, eligibility for index inclusion, tighter parameters around our trading, and then again, when and if that day comes, it's a very, very quick move into the U.S. Now, back when Terracin announced, the HHS recommendation hadn't hit, and you start to think about, like, if the Canadian markets are the ones that are going to continue to be open, you really look at what your optionality is here, but we're very happy with this move.
It's good. Steve, he's behind the scenes. We're going to swing in Mr. Darren Weiss and talk a little bit about Ohio and Florida, but got a big vote, couple of big votes coming up next month, which is going to be compelling. Darren, come on in.
I'll pass the chair, but always a pleasure.
Congrats, my friend.
Chad.
I can sit on your lap. Hey,
Good to see you. Congrats.
Thanks so much.
Got the whole team here. I heard you flew in
that's
from
right.
Boston, so making your rounds around the city.
Making my
or should I say
rounds.
country.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, kissing babies, shaking hands. You know how it goes, right?
It's a big... Doing it right now, right? Congrats, obviously, with this announcement.
Yeah,
but just to kind of what Aaron said, like, this is a big step up, I think, for the industry, CEBO Canada, and what they're doing for this industry as well. It's a big monumental moment for both parties involved here today.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And to me, it's also emblematic just of the way that we think about the business and the industry.
Yeah.
I heard you and Aaron talking about the TSX, and there are many folks who, whose path is really to look at what others have done and are doing and to fall in line. And we take a different approach. We always like to think about what's best for our business and the way that we can operate in the most efficient way. This was a no-brainer for us, to be perfectly honest. The size of the platform, the speed to which we can get access to institutional investors in U.S. equity markets on a federal catalyst. We are super excited at what's to come. And it's just really the first step in terms of our evolution as we look towards liberalization of cannabis policy at the federal level and frankly around the world.
Access on one exchange to investors, let's face it, when it comes to cannabis investors, where are the big markets? North America, Europe, and Australia. And I think that's a lot of information that I think people should be understanding and be aware of with this listing. So timing's everything, as I said to Aaron. Once we get some sort of legislation announcement, I know you have a lot of understanding of that too. So what's your take? Like, do you strongly feel that rescheduling will take place at some point in 2024?
I am very, very bullish on a scheduling change.
You are.
I am, and for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, there's political motivation behind this. I think the Biden administration understands both the social and economic benefits that cannabis and the cannabis industry bring to this country. Look, there are hundreds of thousands of people employed in this industry. We have more people working in cannabis than we have people working in coal-fired plants. We have more people working in cannabis than many manufacturing industries that we have across the country. This is an
industry
real.
that actually is bigger than the NFL and Major League Baseball combined.
100%, 100%. And you have places like Colorado.
It's still a Schedule 1 drug.
It's still a Schedule 1 drug. We operate a business with both hands tied behind our back. It's a travesty in a lot of ways, both for human health, but also just the economic story, which I don't think gets told enough.
Yeah.
We have had the honor and the privilege of helping thousands of folks develop careers in a brand new industry.
Yeah.
And achieve heights that they didn't think possible.
How long have you been with the company?
I've been with the company since day one.
So in public February 2021, as you said earlier.
Yeah, so
So
2016, 2017, yeah, started working with George Arcos, our founder.
How's George with this all announcement today?
Yeah,
I'm sure
he's super
ecstatic.
excited. He's super
This
excited.
was a press release for you. I made a quote about that, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting to say the least, right?
For sure, for sure. And it's really just it's just another step for us. It's an important one, no doubt. But excited to share, moving forward, lots of additional updates and innovations and disruptions that we're going to bring to the space as we really work to continue to build a moat around our business and differentiate.
Growth states, Ohio. This is a state that could generate between $250 and $400 million of tax revenue per year. A market size, if adult use is passed, could be as big as 1.5 to 2 billion per year. Early in-person voting is taking place. Big vote coming up November 2nd. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, super excited about the market. We've been in Ohio since day one.
Yeah.
Part of the initial license rounds. Had the opportunity to serve folks in the Buckeye State for a number of years now. Feel really good about the momentum there. Excited to be able to see that ballot initiative move forward and get approval. Really hoping that the legislature sticks by what they've been saying as of late, that they're going to.
The approval rating's huge.
Look, I have always said that I don't understand how popularly elected officials can, sort of give the middle finger to their population who votes for something. And unfortunately, that's what we say. That's what we see, right? If the population wants it, you're there to represent the people, not to represent your own interests. And if the people want it, your job should be to figure out how to get it done. And I would certainly call on the legislature in Ohio and in every other market, by the way, not to mention Florida, which is a whole different story.
Big date coming up too next month.
Yeah, November 8th, we'll hear oral arguments, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear what the justices think there. But on Ohio, I feel good about where things are headed. And look, like so many things in this world, particularly in this 24-hour news cycle type of world that we live in, so much of this is about momentum, and we've got the wind at our backs now.
Feels different.
It feels different. We've been saying 3 to 5 years for real change for 10 years now, but it really feels like we are.
It's really 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I know and I understand that there are many investors and industry watchers who are sort of once bitten, twice shy, and just feel sort of beaten down. And that's okay. But the truth is, this is one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting times in this space, certainly for the industry and certainly for our business in terms of what we're doing. And I couldn't be happier with the move today.
Operating in 13 states?
That's right.
13 states. Don't ask me off the top of my head what all 13 states are, but I have a good idea. But like some of the growth states, we look at Ohio, obviously a big placement in the state of Florida, New Jersey. Any information that you want to share with regards to certain states that you feel really most excited about right now?
Yeah, New Jersey. Look, New Jersey continues to be one of the crown jewels for us.
Yeah.
We were an early entrant into the market. We had capacity and retail open on day one of adult use there. And we're able to participate in that excitement. Obviously, we're seeing new stores open there, which is great. Social equity participation. We love what the state has done with respect to recently passed legislation that gives operators like ourselves the opportunity to take positions in new social equity joint ventures. That's been great. I'm super excited about Connecticut as well. It was a fabulous market for us before adult use and continues to be a fabulous market for us today. We're the largest producer in the state, command top market share. Again, the legislature decided to allow these social equity joint ventures, which has been wonderful for us. We've opened 2 of these social equity joint ventures already and plan to open 4 more over the rest of this year and into next year. Maryland has been a great growth story. I'm from Maryland. It's my home state. It's where I live
some big
of
numbers.
the time. And
big numbers.
That's right. We've seen a pop with the July 1 launch, and it's held steady. We're continuing to see really strong demand and growth. There's new social equity licenses coming there as well. Would love for the governor and the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Anderson, to really push on social equity joint venture participation there as well. We've seen that model work. So excited about Maryland as well. Pennsylvania is another one that has been a tough market.
But adult use, and what I'm hearing, that's going to go through.
Yeah, we're very confident on adult use over the next year or two. There's been a lot of support. Governor Shapiro is very supportive of the program. We've got a fair amount of stores there.
What do you think about New York? Did they get it right? Do they get it right?
Gosh, how much time do we have?
I know, right?
Look, I mean, New York is it's such an unforced error, the whole thing.
Isn't it?
I mean, everyone is, we've had an opportunity to learn from mistakes as it relates to these regulatory rollouts, and they just didn't want to do it. Does it get corrected? Maybe, but it's going to be a long time. Look, it's a great state. There's a great population there. There's a very strong cannabis culture and connection to the plant and the product there.
Yeah.
I think there's a great opportunity to make a lot of money and to do good in that state. But I don't think it's going to. It's not going to roll out cleanly. Clearly, it hasn't yet. And frankly, until the state gets serious about involving folks who have the capital and the know-how to really move the program forward, and at the same time enforcing its own laws, getting rid of all these fly-by-night operators who are getting product in illegally out of state, who get raided and then restock their shelves an hour later. Until they get serious about that, we're going to continue to see problems, certainly in the urban areas.
What was it? 15,000 illegal dispensaries in Manhattan alone.
Yeah, it's insane.
15,000.
When I was there last, every once in a while I pop into one of these places.
Yeah.
And I say, show me what you've got. And the guy, he looks both ways.
Does he really?
He said, look, we were raided an hour ago, so they took all of our product. I was like, oh, okay. And he said, but here's what we've got. And he takes out a duffel bag full of product. I don't know how someone who wants to play by the rules competes with that.
How do you as a consumer trust what you're buying too in a situation?
Well, that's a whole other story, right? You don't know what you're getting. Some of the stuff looks like it's branded from California, but you really don't know.
No,
you have no idea. It's a problem. It's a real problem, and frankly, the fact that the policies that have been put forward in the name of social equity have resulted in this, they're only hurting the people to whom or for whom this legislation was crafted. Not to mention the citizens of the state whose health is negatively affected because they're using products that may have pesticides and other things that we really don't want in our bodies. It's really unfortunate.
It's just education, learning more about the industry, understanding the pathway, right?
For sure.
And I think now that we're seeing actual change, listing on exchanges like this, you get an idea of what the end goal is, but more importantly, just the overall infrastructure and getting to know what consumers want. And if we can understand what they want, I think it's just the growth of the industry, because a lot of this in the early days was about size and scale, low-cost producer. However, over time, people have realized cannabis is like wine. Like, you need something that's quality, but at the same time, too, you got to stretch your dollar as much as possible during these inflationary periods. But it's like anything. Like you said, it takes 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's going to take 3 to 5 years, right?
That's right. That's right.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, I did want to get Scott Davidson on from CEBO Canada, because I'm curious to see how that whole partnership began, conversation-wise. But what a big day it is, obviously, as I said before, for both parties involved, right?
Absolutely. And CEBO has been amazing to work with. We're super excited. The partnership has been great. We made the decision not too long ago to move over. The team has been excellent. Our team obviously worked their asses off to get us here too, and we did it. And we're just looking forward for what's coming next.
Congrats. Good luck with the roadshow here today.
Thank you so much, Dad.
Appreciate it. We're going to bring Scott in now from CEBO Canada. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Guys, long time listener,
Congrats.
first time caller.
Oh, yeah. Take your calls. Any comments? It's a big day for the exchange.
A lighthouse
big
moment.
day.
Absolutely. Yeah, our largest issuer to date, and in a space that we've been passionate about since cannabis industry got started.
So why the interest in cannabis?
Because other exchanges have prohibitive rules
Yep.
that have not allowed access to capital or even a listing publicly. And we've taken a different approach.
Yep.
Focus not so much on the business itself, but disclosure for investors. So there's transparency and informed decision making out there and allowing operators to really focus on the execution of their business.
So 97% of this industry, as I said to Aaron and Darren about how it's driven by retail. And this is this industry that's been hit hard through shorting for years. So when you talk about transparency, can you walk us through kind of an example as to listing on an exchange like that and how they can fix that problem?
Yeah, most definitely. And it's one of our benefits when you look at us versus our competition. We've seen concentrated liquidity on our market, whereas most of our listed issuers can trade anywhere between 75 and 95% of their volume on their primary exchange, where they're paying to be listed. And if we're trading that much volume, say 90%, that's 90% of the volume that we can see and identify as far as activity, that we can dive into and analyze on behalf of the issuer. More importantly, the issuer can see that much more volume versus fragmentation across multiple different platforms. And the big winner is obviously the investor. When they're looking up stock quotes or market data, they see more of the pie and more of the picture as well. So we offer much more transparency into their volume for the issuer themselves.
So at $2 billion market cap company, and you guys right now with one exchange, I think a lot of the interest, I think from what I've heard from Aaron too, is just being under the CEBO. This is CEBO Canada. This is all about the CEBO ecosystem. So if we do see rescheduling at some point, this is going to be very quick and turnkey for them having access to a US market, US exchange. And we all know that time is the essence in this industry, because once you get announcements like that, it's going to be, I don't know, like for say 3-6 months before some of these other companies can list on tier 1 exchanges. So in the event that does happen, maybe talk a little bit about just the timeline as to how quick and easy it's going to be to transfer into, the U.S. dual listing exchange.
Well, it's a great question, where we're seeing a lot of interest as it ties directly into our new global listings offering.
Okay.
You know, what we're proposing to do from a public listing standpoint is offer streamlined and synergistic capabilities to list on other markets, US being one of them, ultimately the EU and the UK, Australia in the future as well, all equity markets that CEBO operates today. And where we're already comfortable, we already have disclosure materials, financial materials, we've already done the analysis and the review here on CEBO Canada. When those other markets open up and listings become permissible, there's going to be a fast track for those companies meeting listing standards in each of those respective markets. That they can qualify for a public listing versus starting from scratch or working with a completely separate exchange.
So access to investors, UK, Europe, North America, and Australia all in one exchange.
Correct. And part of not only a proper listing, we're looking to post the stocks in each of those markets for secondary liquidity as well, without the regulatory burden of listing in those markets until a company decides they want to formally list or raise money in those jurisdictions.
What would you say is the biggest difference between your exchange and the TSX?
I would say there's a few different benefits. One is more of a disclosure-based approach, as we just talked about, versus maybe a discretionary view on the business, as well as NEO is the former NEO exchange, now CEBO Canada, has often been viewed as an innovative exchange or an exchange for growth companies or new and more emerging sectors. And so I think there's a real intrinsic value for a lot of those companies to differentiate themselves versus listing on much more crowded exchanges. And now with the CEBO global footprint, that changes the game completely, where we can offer much broader exposure to more institutional firms, international firms, deeper liquidity pools in all other markets.
Do you compete now with the likes of NASDAQ and NYSE if you do see rescheduling take place? Like, how do you see that all unfolding come next year? Because it appears to be a very monumental year for this industry come to 2024.
It is. It's one where, everybody's monitoring that space and has been for years. The U.S. has certainly been a little lagging as far as starting to open up this market. These issuers do need access to capital outside of Canada. As much as we want to be the home for that access to capital today, we do see other markets starting to open up. And if and when that does become available, I think CEBO US and Verano making a decision like this is well positioned to take advantage of being a first mover in those types of situations.
It's a big announcement today, biggest issuer on date, I should say. What's this say about you, your exchange, and the industry moving forward? You anticipate a lot of companies, have you fielded a lot of calls about companies wanting to list, say from previous exchanges to now potentially here?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's always been a part of an overall strategy to work with venture listed companies
Yeah.
and explain the benefits of ultimately becoming non-venture, becoming tier one for that broader exposure and maybe more institutional eyeballs on the stock. But, part of our value proposition has always been, to be a front runner, to do things differently, to be a supportive listings environment, and really to come to the table as a partner
Yeah.
for these public companies
Yeah.
and help them achieve their corporate initiatives and goals.
Congrats.
Thanks,
This is a big
Shaq.
day.
Real pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it
Thanks
as well.
for being here.
That pretty much wraps up the live stream. So leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. What do you think of the announcement with Verano today? What this means, obviously, for them being on a tier one exchange. What this means for the overall industry, because this is going to be a set of trends to come for the industry as we look at 2024, hopefully being a monumental year, because we know you, the viewers, are very, very interested in this space. Appreciate it. And honestly, appreciate everybody, obviously, for checking in here for the exchange here today. And we'll follow up with you guys later this week. Thanks, everyone.